What's up, everyone? It's Mike back with you again on another episode of One and Done with Zeke. How's it going, Zeke?
Yo, it's going good.
Awesome. For today's episode, we have something special. This was actually a topic proposed by one of the members in our community, and we thought it's a fun topic, definitely interesting. So we thought, hey, let's try it out. The topic specifically, or the question actually, is why do you think previous Dragon Ball card games failed? So we thought, all right, this is definitely a meaty topic. We can dive deep into it. We can probably start by breaking down each Dragon Ball card game, and then our thoughts on why they weren't as successful. So why don't you take it away?
Awesome. So there's four primary card games that have existed um, in the U.S. Score DBZ or Score Z, which was the very first one from the late '90s to early 2000s. We had Bandai's first attempt at making a Dragon Ball card game in 2008, and then we had Pansy, which was Panini's attempt at the Dragon Ball card game, and we have now Bandai's second iteration of their card game. We're gonna go down by each one and mark why success and failure are measured in a certain way. Score Z actually didn't fail. Actually, from Score. So Score actually Dragon Ball was their backbone of the company. Score actually had several card games, similar how WotC had Pokemon and had Magic the Gathering and had other things from the late '90s and early 2000s. And then Dragon Ball ended. That's literally what happened. The game actually had a huge following, had really good prize support. They had trophy cards that were exclusive. A lot of things that Shonen Jump and Pokemon took from Score and integrated into their game. So it actually Score actually introduced a lot of interesting card community aspects that was adopted by other games and tournament organizers in there. So there were cards that were exclusively so similar to the most current Dragon Ball, how they had leaders. They had something called personalities, and there was special and unique personalities and event cards that you could only get by placing top cut in Dragon Ball in their tournaments, and the game just did really really well. When GT came out in the U.S., they carried so the card game went on a small hiatus for about, I believe, 6 months, and then GT came out and they brought the game back. They changed the back of the cards. This is like, again, really early 2000s, and then the company decided, hey, you can use all of your old stuff with the new stuff, because there's a lot of staples, simple cards that just even through years it never got power crept. And this is where like the sleeve rule really was started being heavily implemented, because you have a card game that has backs that have two different back designs. One has GT's logo on the background, the other one had Dragon Ball Z's logo in the background. So they made it so you can share cards across both eras, but you have to have sleeves, and that did really well. I believe the GT era was roughly about 2 years. Again, more event toppings and placer cards and things like that. Really, really well. I don't believe it ever did a worlds level. I'm not 100% sure on that aspect, but I believe it was like definitely like Nat styled, like what they called worlds was primarily the U.S. market. I know the game was huge in SoCal and huge in Texas, where Score was based out of. And then once GT ended, the Bandai or Toei at the time actually was kind of like, well, the game's over or the show's over, so there's not really a point to keep going. And Score eventually discontinued the card game, and it was kind of like it never failed. It was more of like it's over, it's ended, and it's time. The game I think ran for 8 years, so good lifespan. Sadly, Score filed for bankruptcy and went out of business 2 years afterwards. And clearly it showed that Dragon Ball was a really strong card game for them, because as soon as they dropped it, they just never found a good replacement for it. I believe they did their own card game that used similar mechanics to Dragon Ball, but it wasn't Dragon Ball themed at all. Didn't take off like they wanted it to, and the company just went under. Following in 2008, Bandai had a huge success with the Naruto card game. Really, really fun card game. Um, started started in a very basic form, then had a really good development, and then started having some dev issues later on. Um, and they it definitely was a cash grab in the beginning because the show in the U.S. did phenomenally well. We were entering the Shippuden era for Naruto, and Bandai was like, "Well, since this is doing really well for us, let's use some of our other IPs, but use the exact same game mechanics from Naruto, and just reskin it with other characters from other games." And they did, and their first attempt was Dragon Ball, and then they did, I believe, Bleach as well. And the problem with that was they introduced new mechanics to the Dragon Ball aspect that wasn't in the Naruto aspect, and they took away some things from the Naruto when they made the Dragon Ball, which was interesting because you actually could cross build and cross play with Naruto and Dragon Ball, and you had some interesting interactions. Definitely things that weren't thought out. Unfortunately, as Naruto started to get older, and because they were just kind of reutilizing a lot of the same mechanics, it just didn't sell very well. Bandai did provide a lot of stores with a lot of like support for the game, which was for both Naruto and Dragon Ball, but it just didn't take off in comparison to like it wasn't even close to the big three, which was Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh. Like it wasn't even close, and stores just didn't found it difficult to keep a player base in a game that was just not selling as well. They could have held on, and it could have done better. The problem is that they made so many mistakes in the development of Naruto that they were firing developers and things like that. And Naruto had a decent lifespan, and its failure kind of crept into Dragon Ball. I believe Dragon Ball only got 3 sets before being canceled.
Yeah, it was really short.
It was very, very short. It was really sad because I actually liked the game a lot because it played very differently than other card games. Again, similar to the Naruto card game, but had some really cool like Dragon Ball. Like they had a wish mechanic where basically a certain type of damage gets you a Dragon Ball, and you had cards that were called wishes that if you acquire all your Dragon Balls, you can use your wish effect. And like there was a bunch of wish cards, but you can only have three, and they were like set aside. So whenever you got your Dragon Balls, you got to pick from one of your 3 wishes. Really cool interactions and mechanics. You know, like if you're playing like a Garlic Jr. deck, there was wishes that were orientated that would support Garlic Jr. since he actually got to wish for something. So it was fun stuff, but just really, really short. I think their failure comes from not trying to be innovative and just trying to do this copy and paste. There was even rumors that they were going to make a case closed card game. They were going to make a One Piece card game, and it was all going to mirror the Naruto card game. And they did it first with Bleach and Dragon Ball, and just flopped really, really bad. There's still some cool cards out of it that I wish I could kind of look into and would like to collect, but just sad. It was just a sad moment. Now the following card game is like a sub card game. It's not one I listed at the beginning, and that's Dragon Ball Heroes. Dragon Ball Heroes is interesting because it actually came out around the same time as the Bandai Dragon Ball card game, but it was exclusive to Japan, and it's an arcade game that uses booster packs where you pull these really beautiful looking cards, and you use these cards and scan them on these little arcade machines, and you get to battle with them, and kind of like your fighting character, like you're playing Mortal Kombat, but you actually have to like you scan a card. Very, very similar to Dual Terminal from Yu-Gi-Oh, and actually Yu-Gi-Oh used the idea from Dragon Ball and made their own Dual Terminal, and actually started doing their thing. It's very, very interesting how they take a lot of things from each other, from other games. And Dragon Ball Heroes is actually still around to today, but it's not an actual card game where you play with other players. It's just an arcade game that uses Dragon Ball cards. And there's a lot of... it's actually what inspired a lot of like what Xenoverse and a lot of newer things, like like SS4 Gohan, Adult Gohan, and SS4 Adult Gotenks, and these masked Broly and Vegeta cards, and these very interesting combination of cards that we have now, like the Agents of Destruction, Buu, and Broly, actually come from this universe of Dragon Ball Heroes. Dragon Ball Heroes is basically like a fan paradise where of all of the crazy stuff you could ever think of, like SS4, Trunks and all that comes into exist, and there's like some like fusions between characters that never happened in the show, and actually, we'll touch on this later, but we've recycled some art from Heroes and the newest Dragon Ball game, so I think it's kind of cool that there is a reference point where this content comes from. But going into 2015, Panini, which is known for just doing sports cards, over the last 5 years up until 2015, had started divulging into other IPs and card games and trying to test the water doing other things outside of sports. And Panini actually bought the rights from Score, or whoever left that Score from the company was able to purchase the rights from Score of imitating the mechanics from. Basically, they copied and pasted Score Z. Score Z was a successful card game that just did really well, and it ended because the show ended. So Panini took advantage of Dragon Ball Z Kai and the hype behind that, and basically was like, oh, we can just replicate what they did with Kai, and they did. And what's really cool is that they made it so you could actually, they reprinted cards from the original game, so which means that you could actually use some of your old Score Z cards with the new Panini Z as long as they were in a sleeve. And that's why they call it Panini Z, because it was just called the Dragon Ball Z card game, but it just made an easier indication of which card game we were talking about, because up to this point we've had three. So you have Score Z, Dragon Ball 2008, and then Pan Z, which is just short for Panini's ownership of Z. And it was doing okay. They had, I believe, 2 worlds total, and they even made a San Diego Comic-Con promo when Battle of the Gods was announced to come out the following year. And that was, I believe, one of the last cards they made. And the problem with Pan Z was the game started out strong because it got a lot of nostalgia from Score players. It was kind of cool for them to kind of be able to reuse some of the older cards. Not very few cards were able to be reused, but it was cool that just they kind of reused some of the artwork. They definitely updated the text to have more modern card game lingo. And the problem is that when the game started to kind of not do well, they created a booster pack style where they basically sold booster packs at Dollar Tree, and that's kind of where the game started to go downhill, and Bandai just wasn't happy with the way Panini was handling the card game. So they, when Battle of Gods was announced, they basically took the rights back from Panini, which abruptly ended their development of the game, and they announced the Dragon Ball card game. So Bandai wanted to cash in on the hype that Dragon Ball was riding on, coming back with Battle of Gods into Dragon Ball Super. I hate saying this because it's not where we're at now, but Dragon Ball Super was 100% a cash grab. They wanted to take full advantage of the hype between Battle of Gods, the new animation style, bringing Akira Toriyama back. A lot of people don't know this, but in GT, Akira Toriyama was only used for like consulting of like designs and things like that, but he did not write any of the script for GT, any of the storyboard at all, which is why GT is always like the redheaded stepchild. But Dragon Ball Super, you were actually bringing Akira Toriyama back, and it was an original story, all from the guy himself. So Bandai was like, well, Panini is a failure, in their standard, it was a failure, um, and they just took it from them and made the Dragon Ball Super card game, and it did so well. I give Bandai a lot of credit for a cash grab. They definitely made a lot of effort in terms of art and card design. I know, Mike, you and I go back and forth all the time about the best thing about this game in terms of collectability is the art. The art is hands down like Godbreak Goku, Lightning Speed Hit, Broly the Rampaging Horror, and Frieza. I forget his full name, but he's basically the Emperor. I forget the name of the 4 SPR, but those 4 SPRs from set 1 were gorgeous. They were expensive just because they were pretty, not even because of anything else. And
Well, and for set 1, they were the highest rarity.
mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like today's sets where we have secret rares, but people may not know this. The very first set of Dragon Ball Super didn't have a secret rare. So
Mm-hmm.
the highest tier was actually special rare, which, you know, like Zeke said, there was 4 of them. So there was 4 per case, and those were essentially the chase cards when the set first came out. But yeah, go ahead.
Right. So, like, the game was so cool. It was what was interesting is that it introduced mechanics from across all card games. Some mechanics similar to Pokemon, some mechanics similar to Magic. Still very original in how things interact. Like, traditional card game logic does not apply to this game. This game has its own card game logic, which is interesting. But the art was just so good. The mechanics were new and refreshing. People didn't feel like this was a copy and paste. It definitely, like I said, definitely had some insight from Magic and Pokemon, but still very, very original, and just people loved it. And I think sometimes people forget that Dragon Ball is almost a 40-year-old franchise. That the fan base is massive, like just absolutely massive, and I think players just really liked it. I mean, Battle of the Gods brought back so this is the thing. Dragon Ball Z Kai didn't really bring back a lot of people. It actually separated a lot of people because people liked the original dubbed from the 90s and 80s. People liked the gore, like to me one of the most like iconic scenes was just Frieza beating the living shit out of people. Everybody was bloody, you know. Vegeta got a hole in his chest and everything, or during the Cell Saga, like when Android 16's head was crushed and you just see like all that blood and explode. Like, it was just very gruesome, but very like just tenacious, and it was just really good for me, like growing up as a kid. But then you watch Dragon Ball Z Kai, and it's just so dumbed down. They changed, like, Mr. Popo's blue now. He's not black because of you know, cultural reasons, and they shaved off a lot of the not filler, because Dragon Ball isn't known for filler, but they cut off a lot of unnecessary plot lines in the background just to simplify it. So Dragon Ball Z Kai didn't really bring people back into Dragon Ball as a fan base. If anything, it separated them. It was only really good for like the younger generation to discover Dragon Ball Z, which it did, but older Dragon Ball Z fans were like, whatever. And this is where I believe Panini didn't get to capitalize as much as they thought they would. But Battle of the Gods, that brought back everybody. All of the new fans from Kai, all of the old fans from Z and GT, all of the old fans from just the original 80s Dragon Ball. It brought back everybody. So you have people, because I'm in my late 20s, and I was super excited because I grew up with Dragon Ball. I adore Dragon Ball. You know, so and a lot of my friends are in their 30s, so they're also like big Dragon Ball fans. They didn't care for Kai. I didn't care for Kai. I watched Kai like up until the Frieza saga, and that's when I really started to notice like all of like the dumb down and the shaved content and
I didn't like Kai either. Like, for me, what I loved so much about the original Z was the fact that everything was long and epic. And I never got that sense with Kai. Kai felt like the shortened version of what Z had, which was just basically like the main points of it. But for me, like, I liked the longer, the longer story, the
The
you know,
longest 5 minutes of your life. The planet's gonna
yeah,
blow up in 5 minutes.
yeah. It just made everything feel so epic when they like, when all the battles took time. It wasn't like a 2 second process. But
Oh
with
yeah.
Kai, it was basically, it was there to address people's complaints that Z took too long. And I could see that, right? The progression of the story in Z was much slower, but to me that's what made it feel so special, was the fact that it was slower, and it just, epic is pretty much the best word I can describe it.
The,
But
the payoff was always, again, different times. I mean,
yeah, I totally agree.
the payoff for watching Frieza lose to himself was, I think the fact that you spend what, like a good 30 episodes building Frieza up, his first form, second form, third form, final form, and he lives through a spirit bomb, like Goku and everybody gets their ass kicked, and then you find out Frieza has like a final form point, like 2.0, where he's like yoked out and buff. Like, you find out that he actually has another form. He technically has 6 forms, and he survives the spirit bomb and everything. Like, that was just like so, as a child, as a kid, that was like, I was at the edge of my seat. Like, I had no clue what was gonna happen, and up
Yeah.
until this point, they established in the story that people will die. When Tien and Chaozu died, and Krillin died, Goku died with Raditz. Like the Dragon Balls can only bring people back one time. So like Goku was already brought back. So it was like the stakes were super high, and I think people didn't really understand now what was so good about it. And again, we're talking about the 80s and early 90s, where like they had to stretch this out because the manga was so much, well, not shorter, but it did the same thing, but fleshing it out, they definitely like fleshed it out and made it long for a reason, because they wanted people to feel that build up and excitement. And it's
Yeah.
definitely, I think, kind of like it's like dark chocolate. It's an acquired taste. And I think when Battle of the Gods came out, it brought everybody back. Beerus felt like a character that truly deserved to be in the universe. It felt really, really natural and organic, and it brought back everybody. And it was a smart thing. It was definitely a cash grab, and Bandai was so shocked that the game just picked up so much steam. The demand for player support, store support, like, I could not keep product in the store for more than an hour. It would sell out even before it would come into the store, because people would just prepay and pre-order everything. And I think our card design, game design, and honestly, it's I truly believe the game design was 100% accidental. They made something without knowing how amazing it was. That is 100%. I truly, because they've admitted that they've made a lot of mistakes in set 1, that looking at set 1 you wouldn't have thought at. Now, 2.5 years later, 3 years later, man, it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
You can look back and see what they're talking about certain cards and how they were designed. They didn't have any foresight. Like people wonder like why certain cards get banned or eroded, and it's because when they made these cards, they didn't think the game would last this long, or they would have these many interactions. Like the card pool is over 1,000 now, and I think that's great. I think we have a total of like 1,500 cards, 15 in the card pool, which I think is phenomenal. There's a lot of diversity.
It's really ironic when you think about it. In the previous iterations, when they were actually trying to make a successful card game, they didn't really stand the test of time. But now they actually made a card game accidentally and unintentional to be long term, and the opposite happens, where it actually does pick up steam and just is a huge success. So in some ways, it's when they're not trying as hard that they're able to bring out the best and show the most potential that Dragon Ball has as a card game. And I think that's kind of interesting to look at, right? Because the closest they became to having success throughout the history is Score, because that lasted the longest, and was pretty international and had a lot of success. But their biggest Achilles heel was the fact that really they were just so tied to the show itself that once the show was done, that's it. So and then obviously they had another iteration after that with Bandai trying it out, but you know that basically had issues with the mechanics and trying to copy paste, like you said, and then same with Panini, basically trying to bring back score. Like it just feels like in the beginning they had some success, but were too tied to the show and tried again, but then mechanics weren't as good, weren't really as fleshed out. This is kind of like the perfect combination, right? Where you have a card game that's not as tied to any single show, right? Like they're bringing in cards and themes from all sorts of sagas from all Dragon Ball shows, plus things that never really happened in the Dragon Ball shows. So going beyond that, which is huge, and then also, like you said, having mechanics that weren't intended to be really good, but ended up becoming really good and attracting players too. So it's kind of like that perfect mixture of all the things that they weren't really able to get in the beginning. Plus, obviously, the art. I think the art's the other big factor too, right? Where, at least for me personally, I never really felt like Score was fun to look at. And it was during the days of the height of Pokemon and Wizards of the Coast, and they just didn't compare. Like, at that time, what you would call modern, right? Because modern is a relative word. In the 2000s and late 90s, modern Pokemon, modern Magic, to me, looked a lot better than Score. But then today, when you look at modern Pokemon, modern Magic, and modern Dragon Ball, it's hands down Dragon Ball. So I think also that art factor is playing a much bigger role this time around, and the other things too. Like it just feels like everything's going right for this card game that the previous versions didn't have. And I'm with you too. I think it was kind of by accident, but it's definitely worked out for them, and it's worked out for all the fans that are into Dragon Ball for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, I think when one of the benefits of they started with the idea of a cash grab is that you have to make when you're doing a cash grab in any scenario in business, you have to make the product as desirable and as sellable as possible. And Bandai is such a cheap company when it comes to marketing. I think it's criminal how cheap they are when it comes to they use Facebook and YouTube, and that's
Pretty
it.
much.
And they don't advertise on Facebook or YouTube. They literally just have a Facebook page and they have a YouTube channel, which isn't even the official Dragon Ball channel. It's actually the Bandai channel that drops all of their promotional stuff, and that's it. But so they're like, well, we're really lazy. We're not going to market, but we need to profit off this game. How can we profit off this game and make it as desirable as possible? And I think what they did was they invested a majority of their assets in art design for the game, and I just think that was genius, because I think the dev, I give the dev team, I actually give the dev team a lot more credit. I'm very critical of them, but the dev team, I think, had a great creation, and while yes they've stumbled around over the years as the game has progressed, at the end of the day, what they've created is something so fresh and new and different that, I mean, I played everything. I played I played the big three. I still play the big three today, and I play them a lot more casual. But I've played so many card games. I've seen card games come and go, and I think it's just great to have Dragon Ball. But I think when they were designing that cash grab product, that's where they put all their money in, was let's make this as pretty as humanly possible and see if it sells. And it did. This was supposed to be like a 3, like from what I understand, TOP was supposed to be the end. It was supposed to go set 1, 2, 3, TOP, we're done. Because TOP wraps up at the end of the show, at the end of what Dragon Ball Super was. And people bought TOP to the point where they had to. We sold out before that we even got the product, basically, and I think that's part of Dragon Ball's success. Is the player base is just refuses to let this game die. Even at the game's lowest point, the player base loves this game and refuses to let it die. As critical as everybody is, and as much as everybody complains, at the end of the day, players love this game and don't want it to go away. And I think that's where this game It's just had a really good foundation with a bad intention, and the player base just said, "Nope, we're taking this and we're running with it. I don't care what you want to do. This is going to be our thing." And 3 years later, I couldn't be happier. So,
For sure. Well said. All right. Well, I hope this answers the question on why previous Dragon Ball card games have died. This was really fun, Zeke. I hope you enjoyed this as well.
no, I love talking the history of the game. I've been around card games so much of my life, so if I could talk about history in any sense of the word, I will, and card game history is one of my favorite things to talk about. So if you guys have any questions about older things, always feel free to ask. I mean, I've been here since day one for Dragon Ball Super, Panini, Score. I wasn't there day one, but I was there early on. So like any card game history for either Dragon Ball or other card games, I would love to talk about it with you guys. So if you guys have any questions, always feel free to ask.
Yeah, for sure. And, like we said in the beginning, this topic was actually suggested by a community member. So if you guys have any topics or ideas that you would like us to discuss, let us know, and we'd be happy to do it. All right. Well, that pretty much is it. Till next time, guys. Thanks again, Zeke.
Yep. Have a good one, guys.